Hey everybody, how you doing? Joe here from the Scruffy Fam. So today, what I want to do is I want to talk about why I have the caliber of rifles I have and what I plan to use them for. Now, instead of showing you guys the rifles, we are going to look at the actual rounds themselves. So the actual cartridges. Now I have a couple different options here, and we're going to talk about these. There's a lot of things greatly debated on what is the best round for hunting, what is the best all around, that's all great and wonderful and fine, but let's actually look at the bullets, let's look at the construction, and let's actually have a conversation over what the average hunter who only goes to deer camp once a year actually needs to hunt. Now this can change geographically on where you're at, but we're going to talk about all of that. So let's get into it. Okay guys, so here on my workbench, these are all of the caliber of rifles that I own. Starting here with the 22 long rifle, 223 Remington, 243 Winchester, 270 Winchester, 6.5 PRC, 308 Winchester, and the 338 Win Mag. So when we look at all of these different options and calibers, every single one of these is viable for hunting at some point. Okay, so every single one of these is viable for hunting. When I look at this, you can say, okay, well, what are your big game cartridges, your varmint cartridges? So these three here, the 22 long rifle, the 223 Remington, and even the 243 Winchester. We'll move these four out of the way. Okay, I'll put the 223 back up here. Okay, so when we're looking at these three cartridges, the 22 long rifle, great for some of your smaller predators, smaller game, squirrel, rabbits, raccoons. This is great for all of that type of stuff. This 223 is great for some of your other predator hunting and could still be used for some of those other smaller game that we talked about. And pronghorn. I actually have used 223 hunting deer. Okay, so I have actually used an AR chambered in 5.56 and 223 for my hunting round. So I have used a 223 as a consideration for deer hunting. Longest shot was 50 yards. It carries plenty of energy within that 50 yards to kill a deer, not a problem. If you're not going to shoot more than 100 yards, you could hunt with a 223 and it would solidify deer on down. Okay, so 223 deer and down if you're not hunting past 100 yards. Next, we have the 243. The really cool thing about the 243 is the number of chamberings that you can do with it, or loadings you can do with it. So this one is a 100 grain, and this thing is great for deer. This is actually the Hornady American Whitetail in 243 Winchester. It's 100 grain. You can go down into the 60 grains with these guys, and this can be a whitetail all the way down. The other really interesting thing about these three cartridges that I've picked is most people start shooting with a 22 long rifle. Okay, my kids are the same. They start with our Ruger 1022, and this is what they shoot: 22 long rifle. Hardly any recoil whatsoever. They're not shooting at distances past 25 yards. They are very, very accurate with this. They work on the fundamentals of shooting, and this is a great entry one. So this is great for all that small game, but it's also a really good entry one. The next step is usually a AR platform in 223 or a bolt action 223 or a 243. My oldest, his very first deer rifle was a 243 Winchester. The 243 we have now was my wife's first rifle, 243. We got our Ruger American in 243. My son has a Ruger American in 243. That is their first deer rifle. Okay. My first deer rifle was a 223. So when we look at these, not only are they viable as hunting rounds, but they're also really great introductory rounds. So these three would all be great for varminting and introduction to shooting. All three of these are wonderful for that type of application. Okay, so what about bigger than that? Let's move these off to the side. I would say that don't use this for anything bigger than a rabbit, unless you're at like point blank range for dispatching farm animals at home. We don't use this for anything except small game and varmint. These you can use deer, pronghorn, coyote, anything like that and down. You could also use both of these on hogs and you would be fine at appropriate ranges. So let's talk about bigger. And this is where there might be some debate. Let me bring all these guys back in here. Now, all four of these cartridges that I have laid out here all have been used to harvest elk-sized game and down. Okay? We have the ever so popular 270 Winchester. Okay? I am a huge fan of this. I just got a Model 70 and 270 Winchester. That video was the last one. I am super excited for this. The application that I can use for this one, you can load all the way up to 150 grain bullet in this, and you can hunt elk down. Okay, Jack O'Connor wrote about it. He did it. Great sheep round, great deer round. I can go down to 100 grain, 110 grain, and this thing will be screaming. The box velocity for the three different types of 270 I got were 3,060 feet per second with a 130 grain round. That is screaming. This will be a great varmint all the way up through elk at appropriate ranges. Again, appropriate ranges. I would say within 300, about 300 yards, 150 grain of 270, you're going to drop an elk. Okay? Next, we have the 6.5 PRC. So people will take these two rounds and compare them and say ballistically they're about the same, and part of the argument is the 6.5 PRC is the modern day 270, and I would agree. Very, very similar ballistically. The difference is the 6.5 PRC is going to hold its energy and go farther. Okay? Very comparable grains of bullets they can use, but if you look, I mean, you can see the tip there. See how much more of the bullet is out? It means this thing's going to carry itself farther, and how fat that case is about the amount of powder that you can get in there. This thing, the PRC, can reach out and touch something. Now, I have seen people take moose, elk, all of them, and dropped them with a 6.5 PRC, okay, at extended ranges, at very, very long ranges. Now, for me personally, 600 yards is the absolute farthest I would ever consider shooting, and I wouldn't do that with any round. I would do it with the 6.5 PRC. Like, this round, I would do it with, because that's what it's designed for. I don't know if I would do that with the 270. I think it drops too much. I would say 300 yards. I would be comfortable taking anything in North America and some species in Africa with a 270. 6.5 PRC, I would say 600 yards and in. I would not hesitate to pull the trigger on anything out there whatsoever. Okay? So that is these guys here. So it's been widely debated on whether or not a 6.5 PRC or a 270 is enough for elk. Some people say they're like the bare minimum thing because the energy they carry. I will tell you that bullet placement, appropriate distance matter, as does the bullet construction. Okay, I have seen 6.5 PRC and 270 Winchester take down moose, bear, and elk. So both of these allow me to do that. Okay. So that is the 270 Winchester and the 6.5 PRC. Those are really my anything in North America, not a problem. Then we have the 30 calibers. Well, the 30 caliber and the 33 caliber. The 308 Winchester. The most popular. Now I'm going to argue that the 308 is the most popular hunting round. And the reason I'm going to argue that the 308 is the most popular hunting round is because anytime I go into a store, a gun shop, I will look at the number of rifles that they have, and I'll look at the chamberings. And far and away, 308 is the largest represented. Okay, 308 is the largest represented. Then I look at ammo. Even during the worst part of quarantine, you could find 308 ammo. Not a problem. How do I feel about the 308? I also think the 308 is effective on elk and down. I have seen people shoot elk with a 308 at appropriate ranges. I would not shoot an elk past 300 yards with the 308 Winchester. Okay, that is me. I would not shoot elk past 300 yards with the 308 Winchester. You can go pretty high in the grain weight of these. This is the 168 grain. I believe this is the 168 grain. And I'm getting really good groups with my 308 with this ammo. And I would have no problem shooting elk size down at 300 yards with my 308. This will drop deer in a heartbeat. It'll drop hogs. It'll tear a hole through a coyote. Probably don't want to do that if you want to keep the fur. Pronghorn. You pick the game species. The 308 has taken it and will take it without a problem. It's easy to reload. It's easy to find ammo. It's easy to find rifles. If you need just one firearm to do everything, my initial knee-jerk is always get a 308. When someone asks me, hey, I'm thinking of getting a rifle, what do you think I should get? I tell them, get a 308 every single time. And then lastly, let's talk about the big boy here. Holy cow. This thing, man, the 338 Win Mag. I am a big fan of the 338 Rem Mag. Or Win Mag. Well, I said Rem Mag. Win Mag. The 338 Win Mag. Belted Magnum. This thing is expensive to shoot. These are $7.50 a round right now to get. Not necessarily the most economical to shoot. This can harvest just about anything in Africa and North America, no problem whatsoever. The 338 Winchester Magnum was designed as the Alaska round and the elk round. When I was growing up, if you were going to go elk hunting and you needed a rifle, you got a 338 Win Mag. When I was talking to my uncle about going elk hunting in Colorado, he sold me his 338 Win Mag, and he said, that is the elk cartridge. That is the elk round. And I would agree. This will drop an elk in its tracks. Not a problem. I also have started looking at some of the hand loading manuals to see how versatile is the 338 Win Mag. There's a couple other 338s that are taking over in popularity. These are increasingly more difficult to find on the shelves. This round actually forced me into reloading. I had no desire to reload. It wasn't something I was supremely interested in. But after getting the 338, I now have a reloading set purely for this round. And so as I look at reloading, I can go down to 185 grain all the way up to a 300 grain bullet for the 338 Win Mag. This is a 200 grain. And so I started thinking about that. A 200 grain bullet, I could shoot deer with this. It would drop them quite handedly. Would not be my go-to hunting round for deer, but elk and bigger, I am picking the 338 Win Mag first. Out of all my other cartridges I have, while they can take elk, while they can take those things, because I have the 338, that is exactly what I would take. So I'm going to line these back up for you guys. So in the Scruffy Fam, we have rifles that are chambered in all of these with the intent of them being hunting rounds. Now, one of the really cool things is those can all be used as deer hunting if needed. Okay? From the smallest I would ever use for deer to kind of pushing it a little bit with the biggest I would use for deer. This, let's see. Yep, that could be used for varmint with no problem. These all can be used for hog. And then these can all be used for elk. So when you look at the different caliber choices that I've picked for my family and for the rifles that I own, there is an application for each of them. And this may not be what everybody decides for theirs. As I am going deeper and deeper into my firearms career, there's a couple things that I am starting to rethink on how I look at calibers, how I look at rifle builds, and how I look at recommendations for people. I still, when people tell me that they plan on they're only going to deer camp every year, they only deer hunt once a year, I recommend the 308 Winchester because of its availability. If you want one rifle, you don't have any desire to target shoot or do any of the other things, you're going to deer camp once a year, you're not going to be shooting anything past 200 yards, 308. I could say a 243, I could say a 270, but the reason I say 308 is because the ammo that you can find for the 308 is extremely affordable. You can find the rifles super easy. If you were looking to do target shooting and hunting, I now would recommend the 6.5 PRC. I actually had someone ask me, hey, why don't you have a 6.5 Creedmoor? I don't have a 6.5 Creedmoor because I have a 6.5 PRC. I have absolutely no need for a 6.5 Creedmoor if I have a 6.5 PRC. It's the exact same bullet, but this goes faster, goes farther, has more energy, and is just a better overall design. So I would use this. I would also use this if you were going into target shooting, and if you wanted to reach out and touch something, this can shoot 1,000 yards with absolutely no problem. Can shoot a mile with no problem. That's what it's designed to do. I think this is a wonderful option if you were thinking, I want to hunt, but I also want to shoot targets, and I want to try to plink steel. I would recommend the 6.5 PRC. Now, if you were really into the classics, and you're like, man, I just really like the Woodstock bolt action rifle. For nostalgia, I would say get the 270 Winchester. I just got a 270. I did not need a 270 whatsoever. If I remove the 270 from this equation, I still have plenty of options. But the 270 has such a storied history in American hunting that if you were looking for something that you could use as a big game all the way down to varmint, and you were going to hunt maybe elk every other year, every 3 years, so you weren't going to be primarily hunting elk, you're primarily be hunting whitetail, pronghorn, hogs, and doing some coyote hunting, I would say get a 270 if you were only going to get one rifle, because you can get bullets down from 100 grains up to 150 grains, so you have that option of going up and down. Then I would recommend the 270 Winchester. If you lived in an area where you didn't have deer but you had pronghorn, you had no desire to hunt elk, but you had pronghorn, hogs, and coyote hunting, then I would be torn between the 243 and the 223. And the reason I say that is the type of firearms you can get a 223 in is so wide and vast. I may lean more towards the 223 over the 243. Now, I think the 243 is going to be more effective on the pronghorn and down, and you could even hunt deer with this. But I think if it was only pronghorn, hogs, and coyotes were your only thing you were hunting, I would say a 223. And if you're only shooting rabbits, squirrels, and raccoons, 22 long rifle. So, guys, these are the calibers and rounds that we have in the Scruffy Fam. A little bit more detailed explanation of what I see these calibers capable of based on what I've seen, my own experiences, the experiences of other people. If you have anything you want to add to that conversation, any recommendations you might have, yes, I am missing 7mm. I do not have an .6 in here, and I don't have any of the other variations thereof. These are very standard ones. And the other thing that went into my choices is ammunition is readily available for most of these. The only ones that are difficult to find ammunition for is the 338 Win Mag. It is difficult to find ammunition. This is, I think the cheapest I saw was $90 for a box of 20. That's insane. And then the 6.5 PRC, because it's a newer chambering, not very many people. I think when I went to the store, I saw 2 Hornady offerings in the Precision Hunter, the match. There was a Winchester match, and then there was a Nosler match. That was it. Okay. 308, there was 2 shelves full. 270 was an entire shelf. 243 was a shelf. 223 had its own section, as did 22 long rifle. Okay. So that was the other thing that went into those choices. But if you've got anything to add to the conversation, if there's something that you guys would change differently, if you don't agree with some of my different classifications for game, purely looking at the hunting aspect for here, enter in the conversation. Let me know. If you guys like what you're seeing, like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.